Well, E3 is practically here, and unlike last year, I'm personally expecting a big Halo presence. But that's not what I'm here to talk about, not directly. The next Halo shooter is undoubtedly around the corner in some manner, and when it arrives, there's a key feature I think it needs. Honestly, there are several features it arguably needs, but I think today's subject is one that doesn't carry much, if any, sort of controversy or baggage in the community. As the title says, Halo 6 needs a codex. With a universe as vast and deep as Halo is, especially now, a codex is almost a necessity. Some Halo games have actually included a codex-like feature that helped expand on the backstory and flesh out the events of the games the feature was present in. The first of these was the Halo timeline included with Halo Wars 1. Entries could be unlocked through playing the game and finding collectibles, and would detail immediate backstory, notably the Spartans and the Covenant War, along with expanding on events in the game or tangentially related to the game. These included backstory on the Spartans, the various characters, the Spirit of Fire, and expanded into events beyond the scope of the game, such as various letters from prophets throughout the war. It served as a great tool for casual fans to familiarize themselves with the Halo universe as necessary to the game, and expand on events beyond that scope, further fleshing out the universe. It was also just a lot of fun to unlock. When Halo Wars 2 came around, it expanded greatly on that timeline feature with the Phoenix Logs. The logs were unlocked by playing the campaign, gathering collectibles, and completing challenges. Entries included profiles on the Ark and its major features and locations, character profiles, and important backstory, among other things. Now, we could debate about how much of this information should have actually been included in the campaign. There's certainly some that probably should have, but the point I ultimately want to make is that it was there and fairly easy to access. And of course, I would be remiss to forget about the library feature which came with Halo CE Anniversary on the Xbox 360. Though regrettably locked behind the need for a Kinect, the feature was generally well received, providing a fun hunt for those library entries which added extra background and lore on characters, enemies, weapons, and more. Now, if Halo 6 were to get a codex, what should that look like? What topics does it need to cover? And what would be nice to have covered? There are two models, I think, that best encapsulate what a codex should have. Mass Effect's Codex, for which I'm getting the name for this, and Destiny 1's Grimoire. The Mass Effect Codex is definitely the gold standard, in my opinion, when it comes to an in-game codex. If you haven't played, here's the gist. The Mass Effect Codex was divided into two sections, primary entries and secondary entries. As you might guess, primary entries were the ones that dealt with the subjects core to the Mass Effect experience. These included the various races, humanity's emergence in the galactic community, locations visited, vehicles, ships, technology, weapons, and more. And as a bonus, they were voiced. The secondary entries involved a number of the same general topics, but dove deeper into those topics. For example, each species encountered had a general entry with an overview so the player could get a gist of things, and a few secondary entries that dove into government, culture, biology, etc. Though these entries did have requirements for unlocking them, it was generally pretty easy to unlock everything over the course of playing the game, at least in my experience. Next, we have the Destiny Grimoire. While it gets a lot of flack for basically locking the story of Destiny away and only being accessible online, rightly so I might add, the breadth of topics it covers are absolutely awe-inspiring. Basic info on characters, locations, weapons, species, classes, powers, etc. Each enemy type had cards dedicated to each rank with breakdowns of their houses or legions or sects or whatever. And of course, the lore. Legends of the Darkness, Tales of Guardian Exploits, Rasputin and the Warminds, Osiris, Saint 14, Twilight Gap, the Book of Sorrows, and so much more. While some Grimoire entries could be unlocked over the course of the game, others, the deeper lore especially, had to be found via collectibles, which made for a fun and even rewarding hunt. Despite its origins, the knowledge contained in the Grimoire is something I'd absolutely love to see Halo aspire to with an in-game codex. Now, the Halo Wars 2 Phoenix Logs lived up to these desires in a lot of ways, but I'm hoping that 343 can take it a step further. In an ideal world, I think a codex would break down like this. Similar to Mass Effect, there would be primary and secondary codex entries, though I'm not sure that they would be separated. Primary entries would relate directly to the game, unlocked as you play through the campaign, though maybe some, such as entries related to enemies, allies, weapons, etc., could be found with something of a scan function, like in the Xbox 360 version of Halo CE Anniversary, though obviously without the need for a Kinect. As it was already in Halo 5, perhaps the Artemis tracking system could be utilized again for this function. Hell, in that game it was already used to find audio logs, so scanning enemies, allies, weapons, etc. for Codex entries wouldn't be a huge shift in the system's operation. Other primary entries could just be unlocked through the course of play, notably locations after beating a level. You could also have multiplayer map lore unlocked after playing a match on said map. Halo Wars 2 again did this, and I have to say there are some great stories told in these extended descriptions. Secondary entries would be stuff related to the deeper lore, or not directly related to Halo 6's core story. These could be character journals, histories of the UNSC and the Covenant or Covenant species, worlds and locations beyond the scope of Halo 6, and much more. Once these entries were unlocked, however that were to happen, players would ideally receive a small notification that a new entry was available in the Codex. Using Halo 5 as an example, imagine if instead of just being left in the dark, players, after completing the level Blue Team, received a notification like, "New Codex entries unlocked." They would then be able to access the Codex and read entries for each member of Blue Team, maybe even a summary of Blue Team's operational history, which would include where these Spartans were during the events of the classic trilogy. Further, if players had found certain collectibles, or perhaps scannables is a better description, they'd unlock entries on the history of the Spartan 2 program, debrief records with the various members of Blue Team to give a deeper look at their state of mind, and more stuff like that. After a level like Swords of Sanghelios, they'd maybe unlock entries on the Arbiter, the Swords of Sanghelios, and Sanghelios itself. If they scanned around, maybe they'd get entries on Sangheli/Covenant weapons and vehicles, journal entries from Sangheli on both sides of the conflict, something that we actually saw in Halo 5's mission intel, and then maybe entries on the War of Beginnings, Legends of Sanghelios, etc. You could also have progressive Codex entries, or basically entries that unlock in parts as you complete the game. Once again, using Halo 5 as the example, this would perfectly apply to Guardians or the Warden Eternal, where you could have parts of their respective Codex entries unlock as the player progresses, only fully unlocking upon the campaign's completion. All of this, of course, would be accessible from in-game, either through the main menu or, if I had my way, even from the start menu during the campaign, just like Mass Effect or a number of games that do something similar. Unlock an entry, pause and open up the Codex to read about it, and then continue on. Hell, let's get really crazy. Maybe these entries didn't actually live on the game's disk, but were stored on the cloud and could be accessed from the Halo channel or any app that replaces it, and from Halo Waypoint. In the latter case, it could even replace the current universe section there, though I could see accessibility issues arising from that last option, so maybe just augment the universe articles, not replace them. Entries could also be added as part of DLC or just over time. Imagine new maps coming out and there were collectibles players could find to unlock new Codex entries, not entirely unlike the skulls in the Halo 3 Mythic maps. And if this Codex weren't stored on disk but on the cloud, perhaps it could even carry over to games going forward, each sequel adding entries. At this point we're getting crazy ambitious, but I think y'all get what I'm going for here. I want something available in the game to allow players, though especially newer or less lore-invested players, to easily access important information that might not be easy to weave naturally into the game's core offering. One final point I want to bring up is one I've seen in recent discussions of such a feature: terminals. Terminals have been a staple since Halo 3, only really disappearing again in Halo 5, though we'll discuss that in just a moment. Some people might worry, and it's understandable, that a Codex would take time away from new terminals. Well, in CEA, 343/Saber managed to make both the library and the CEA terminals, so it can absolutely be done. Though one might point to Halo 5, where we got over 100 audio logs but no terminals. However, I'm fairly confident the only reason we didn't get terminals for Halo 5 is because the Sequence Group, the people behind the terminals since CEA, were too busy with Halo: The Fall of Reach animated series. Hard to produce terminals when you're also producing an hour-and-a-half movie. So, I think it's absolutely possible for 343 to work a Codex in and keep terminals around. Hell, perhaps once unlocked, terminals could be replayed from the Codex. And while we're on terminals, if they're coming back, they absolutely need to be able to be played in-game like they were in CEA, not locked in a separate app like in Halo 4 or played through another app like Halo 2 Anniversary, or, well, basically any terminals in the Master Chief Collection, but whatever. So that's what I want to see from Halo going forward. An in-depth codex that's easy to access and fun to unlock, and as I said at the start, with the scope and breadth of Halo these days, I think it's a necessity. But what do you all think? Do you like what I've presented here? Do you like some of the codex-like features in previous Halo titles? How would you feel about such a feature coming to Halo 6, and what would you want to see from it? Let me know in the comments below. The Xbox E3 presentation is less than 24 hours away, and I'm pretty confident we'll see something Halo related there. Taking a page from the Book of Hidden Experia, I'll be live streaming the full conference tomorrow on my channel. Come join me as we wait in anticipation for a Halo announcement starting at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Britain time. I hope to see you all there, and I look forward to talking about everything that happens tomorrow. Thanks for watching as always, and until tomorrow, this has been Halo Canon. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider subscribing, and if you really love me, hit that notification bell and leave a thumbs up. These both really help out the channel. I wouldn't be where I am now without your views and support, so once again, thank you. Keep on being awesome, Canonites.